Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? I hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, today we are talking about Turbo, right? We will continue to be giving you guys Turbo updates pretty much daily unless you guys, stop wanting them. So, nothing's going to change unless the community is tired of the daily Turbo videos. Listen, some news, right? We can see that from sex.io, we can see that it says say hello to a bunch of other coins, blah blah blah. Boom, Turbo now available for US users. So bam, right? We actually see that they are pretty big. They also have 2 million followers. So available for US users. That is what we like to see. Most of these coins are kind of irrelevant, with Turbo, PIF, maybe debatably one more of them, but we can see that we have been added. So that is very, very bullish. That is fantastic news, ladies and gentlemen. I do have something else to talk about in terms of news that is actually very, 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 very important. And we will, of course, be diving into the technical analysis, right? And I'll even be talking about my plan of what I plan on doing with Turbo. Am I still holding it, selling it, buying more, or what is my plan? So shout out to Peg Leg Wally, right? I've seen you, tag me before, leave a bunch of comments, even just be in the Discord. Shout out to you, right? You pretty much did extra research, went above and beyond, and you found pretty much something very, very interesting. Got to make sure I like and actually retweet this too. Boom, give it more attention. So pretty much Peg Leg Wally says this is the Coinbase 10 wallet, and this is how much Coinbase assets has been accumulating Turbo in the last couple months. Coinbase is one of the biggest exchanges on the planet. And we can see, right, the amount of tokens have been rising ever since, coincidentally, since it's been dumping. So, the markets have all been dumping the last 3 months, right? We could all agree that generally, pretty much the last 3 months, ever since 2025, the markets have been dumping for almost every single coin, right? Some have held a little bit better, some have held a little bit worse, but in general, everything has been on the downtrend. And you can see, right, the whales have been accumulating, ladies and gentlemen, okay? So this is just the Coinbase wallet, but we can see there are other, exchanges and big boys as well that have been buying more Turbo tokens. We can see, right, this exchange over here has been buying more. And the thing is, they're much smaller, but they still have, tens of millions. We could also see Binance, right? Binance has been going up in terms of the amount of tokens, generally speaking. Sure, there was a little minor dip, but overall, they have been accumulating a little bit more. So, that's just from like 3 exchanges. That's not even including, big whales or other exchanges or big boy players. I truly believe that the institutions are trading Turbo because of the price action, because of the way it has been moving. The thing is, not every meme coin moves like Turbo, okay? Turbo moves very, very closely with the way the market is moving. It moves very, very closely with how a coin like Ondo is moving, a coin like Render, some other big boys. Now, of course, each coin has its own context. For example, we are a meme coin, right? And we also have a lot of imbalance, so a big lack of support and resistance from this big zone of 0.0014 all the way to pretty much 0.0033, right? Roughly in between that, there's not much support and resistance, which is why we've also been diving, pretty harshly, right? Pretty harshly. So, of course, there's that kind of context, but generally, we are moving like the markets. When Bitcoin starts bleeding and the dominance starts going up, altcoins start bleeding, all in a similar type of way and structure, and Turbo follows that, which is why I am super, super optimistic about this coin when things reverse and things will be green. Okay. I know a lot of people are, 50-50 on this coin. I get it, right? Especially if you have been buying, even just anywhere from the halfway mark to up here, right? It can look very, very scary right now with how your portfolio is looking, especially if you bought during the time where, Coinbase released Turbo, right? You would be pretty much down 88% from there. So if you had $10,000 in, you would be down roughly to $1,200. So very, very, very scary. Okay, I understand that. Okay, because this is real money. People's lives are at stakes potentially. Some people are over leveraging, right? A lot of people might have just turbo, some people might have just meme coins, some people might have, for example, like me, I have a lot of coins, or a couple of coins, mainly utility, real world assets, and etc. And then turbo holds roughly 10% of my portfolio, definitely my biggest meme coin. So for me, even if something like this would fail or not do as good, I'm still very confident in the rest of my portfolio. Okay, but I understand not everyone plays the game the same way. Look, in terms of structure, it is pretty much almost inevitable that we will be hitting 0.0015, right? We do have a little bit of some type of sideways movement. We would have to see a breakout happen, and we would have to start reclaiming higher and higher levels at this point, okay? Because here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, right? We started to reclaim some type of levels. We actually start to go kind of sideways, and then we just crash right below, right? We couldn't hold this level over here. As you can see, it failed. And even when I placed the rectangle box, it's perfect in terms of technical analysis, right? This structure, we dip below it, we fail to go above it, and then we just continue selling off. And now we're kind of going in a sideways, sideways kind of momentum. But Bitcoin might have a dip here and there, which we'll also discuss. Personally, I am looking to be accumulating. In fact, I'm going to buy some right after this video, and I also will be looking for the 0.015 area, right? This big rectangle box. That will be probably my last turbo purchase. These two positions will also be debatably some of my more aggressive positions, right? Let's say, I'll give you an example. If I have, over the last, just say, few months or even year, put it $10,000 in turbo, I might double down in a way and put, let's just say like $3,000 to $6,000 in this specific range, depending on how I'm feeling, right? That is just an example. Right? So, whatever my portfolio is, I might, like I say, do 30% more, 50%, 70% more, or maybe I'll just completely double down, depending on how much I want to risk and how I am feeling about, holding this token. At the end of the day, Turbo as a meme coin, super, super optimistic, and I think it's still the best for risk to reward. However, Turbo as a coin itself, compared to so many other coins, it's somewhere in the middle, right? At the end of the day, it is a meme coin, has one of the strongest narratives. By the same time, the double-edged sword of a meme coin is, at the end of the day, is just a meme coin, right? So, I'm still obviously not going to be selling. We literally saw that the whales exchanges are literally accumulating right now. So why would I sell when the whales are buying? It makes literal 0 sense, right? Zero. The whales know something that we don't. And, that is why I've also just been dollar cost averaging in general. That's why I'm also super optimistic that we are, in terms of Bitcoin, creating a higher low to then continue pushing up higher, right? I also understand the whole Bitcoin dominance thing that we also have to do. We also do have to go up the other couple more percent before we drop off and completely have, an altcoin season. So, I am not selling. There's zero reason for me to sell. If anything, I'm going to be double downing on my positions. And yeah, that is my personal plan. Let me know what you guys think. I love always reading the comments. Let me know, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.